and welcome to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, a resource center located in Naperville for people in career transition. Career Center will bring human resource professionals and other experts together to provide job search tips to assist you as you search for your next success. Later on Career Center, Army veteran Mike Barbour will join me at the table to discuss the benefits of hiring veterans and why veterans make great employees. But first, I'm happy to have Program Management Executive and most importantly, Community Career Center volunteer, Noreen Peterson on the show. Welcome, Noreen.
Thank you.
So Noreen, tell our audience a little bit about your background. I know that you worked for Accenture, and share a little bit about your background.
So I worked for 30 years, almost 30 years at the company, started right out of college. Initially in technology, programming, systems design, systems development, installation. Moved into the finance organization and spent about half of my career there. Variety of finance roles, kind of towards the end focusing on our corporate functions, helping them with their budgeting, forecasting, managing costs. And then I moved into, later in my career, a business operations role, primarily focusing on working with our corporate functions, which I had knowledge of from a financial perspective, but helping them drive process improvements so we could better serve our employees, so things working with HR, finance, legal, marketing, CIO organization, et cetera, helping them have efficient processes, cost-effective, and kind of bringing the whole financial picture along with the operations side together to just really make sure that our internal functions were managing costs and operations effectively.
Right, so you worked for 30 years.
Almost, yes.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, nowadays you don't see people staying at companies for that long.
Exactly, and I think one of the benefits is that a company like that, there were so many opportunities. And along the way, I did, kind of volunteer activities within the company. Towards the end, I was our executive sponsor for our inclusion and diversity groups. I always had a passion for career development, so I was a career counselor to many people, sometimes required they reported to me. Other times it was people that either knew me or had worked for me in the past and wanted to keep that connection because I always had it was sort of ingrained in you that you succeed, you bring people along with you, and I really always got great satisfaction out of seeing those that I worked with be successful, which is which is what led me as I retired to the Career Center.
Yeah, and so at the Career Center, I know you do a variety of appointments, from career exploration to our job search strategy appointment, and of course our intake appointment. Let's talk a little bit about that intake appointment, because for folks who are new to a job search or recently in a job search, that's really a good place to start. So let's talk a little bit about that.
It is, and the intake process is I think very helpful for our clients because it sort of helps set the stage for where they're at in their career search or their job search, and where do they want to take it, and how can they best use the resources of the Career Center. We'll talk with them about their background, maybe some likes, dislikes, strengths, maybe areas that they think they might need to do some training in or get some additional skills, or kind of maybe bone up on something that was an older skill that they haven't used recently. But the key coming out of that is we can then, as a volunteer, kind of coaching the clients, help them prioritize how best to use the services of the Career Center. So, there's a variety of appointments they can have. There's a number of the different workshops they can attend. And so it helps give them a little bit of focus. And for those who are a little lost or not knowing where to start, it sort of helps them put one foot in front of the other to get things going. And for people who are a little further down the path or sort of know where they want to go, it really helps them say, all right, I don't need these services. These are the ones I can best get benefit from or value from. And so it just makes the best use of everyone's time.
And it's always good to have that structure for whether you know what you want to do or you don't know. It just kind of helps you stay focused.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know that one of the appointments you do is our career exploration appointment. And let's talk about that. I come to you and I say, you know what, I'm not sure what I want to do. I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. help me? What should I do?
Well, I always start out, and each of the volunteers probably does things maybe a little bit differently, but I kind of explain it that we may spider web around, kind of jump from topic to topic, and at times you may be saying, what is Noreen doing here? Why is she asking me this? But at the end, we kind of like to bring it back together, and sometimes you think of something you haven't thought of before, but there's always one topic we talk about, and if you remember back to math class, Venn diagrams, so kind of intersecting circles. When you're going through career exploration, I encourage people to think about what are the things you're good at, what are the things you like to do, and then for a job, what is someone going to pay you for? And if you think of those as sort of your three circles, in a perfect world, you find the job that intersects what you like to do, what you're good at, and what someone will pay you for. Sometimes you end up in what you're good at and what someone will pay you for, and you may not love it, but as long as you like it, it's okay, but understand that. If you want to work in something you love, but it's not something you're going to get paid for, that's called volunteer work. And that may be okay, and maybe that's something you need to do in the short term, but if your goal long term is to get that job, you need to kind of understand how the three fit together and where you're most comfortable sort of in that diagram.
Are you always able to help someone figure that out?
A lot of times it's you kind of get the wheels going, and I kind of say it's homework if you don't have it figured out, and that's okay, because really your career exploration is generally at the beginning of the process, so you don't have to have everything figured out. I try to listen as they're talking about likes, dislikes, strengths, and maybe dive in a little deeper to say, tell me about what you did in your last job that was accentuated that strength, and then kind of bring them around to understand how an employer may value that and therefore want to hire you, pay you to do those kinds of tasks. So sometimes they come out very clear, sometimes they may feel like I got a lot of thinking to do, and I think either way is okay.
So if someone comes to you and they've been doing something for 10, 15, 20 years, and now they just, second half of my career and I want to change up. Are you finding you're seeing a lot of clients, job seekers that are in that?
You do. I would say it's a mix. The key in that case is to understand, do you have a skill gap that you need to address before you can get a job in that new field? And sometimes that's a little bit of soul searching and really looking and understanding, do I need to get a certification, do I need to go back to school, or was I maybe a CPA in when I was first out of college, but I moved into sales in the last 15 years, but boy, I want to get back to my accounting roots. So what might you need to do? Is it, do you have to get recertified? Do you need to take a course to, get up to date on all the latest accounting rules, et cetera? Do you need to have a certain technology, software that you need to know?
So no one should come into this thinking, there's no way I can't do what I really want to do now. There's ways. We can figure those things out.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
So when we talk about, I know you mentioned earlier about strengths and skills and kind of the value add to a company. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know you talk about people should be prepared to share examples and stories.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. A lot of times we focus, or as a job seeker, you might focus on your resume, and there's bullets or kind of short sentences. I think it's very important to make sure you have, the stories behind those bullets that you can expound on in an interview. Make sure you sort of have a beginning, middle, and end. So what were the circumstances or the situation? What were some of the issues that you encountered? How did you, what actions did you take to address the issue and the business kind of circumstance? And then what were the results? You can have a short version of it. You can have a longer version of it, depending on the type of interview you're doing. Sometimes they just want to hear a little more than I raised sales by 10%. What did you do? What action did you take? Were there obstacles, or was it an easy market to grow it? Anybody could have done it, but what did you contribute? And that will help. If I'm sitting as the prospective hiring manager, help me understand a little more how you think, how you act in different situations, and I might see you in that role.
And the story and/or example should definitely fit your resume. Yeah.
And maybe just to jump back to the career exploration, I also encourage people, even if they don't have their resume, to think through 8, 5, whatever number of examples makes sense to you. Some are going to be related to your job. Some, if you volunteer, it might be a volunteer activity so you can, show a different side of you. But as you think of these, sometimes these stories will help you figure out, wow, this is the part of my job I really enjoyed. I was really enthusiastic when I thought of that example versus, something that, yes, I did it, but it was my job and I had to do it. So I can give you my example, but I'm not passionate about that area.
Right. Okay. Great advice on the career exploration. What about job search strategy? I know that's another one of the appointments that you do.
Yeah, so my background in operations and managing large projects, I'm a planner. I'm a planner in personal life, my work life. I think a big key to your success overall is having a plan and a timeline, whatever you want to call it, that works for you. It helps you set yourself up to be successful. It sets realistic expectations. What tasks do I need to complete? What's a reasonable time to complete them? And then it gives you something you can share with someone who you want to hold accountable, hold yourself accountable to finding that job. And it then can become a positive discussion with that person versus, hey, do you have a, you feel like they're saying, hey, do you have a job yet? Well, no, they can ask you, have you investigated 5 companies this week? Have you sent your resume out? Did you contact your network?
Speaking of networking is another appointment that you do.
Absolutely.
And that's like huge, right?
Yeah, it is. And you'd be surprised, when you start to create that list of colleagues, former colleagues, neighbors, friends, maybe some, depending on how long you've been out of college, maybe some former professors, people in an alumni association. Getting the word out that you're looking, you won't be the only one who's looking, so don't worry about that. But what you'll find is people are more willing to help than you think. They aren't judgmental. If they can't help or they don't know, they sometimes they just connect and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Sometimes they will think about it and a week later connect you with a friend, a colleague, a neighbor of theirs. You're not asking them for a job. You're just letting them know you're looking. And that network is different than your support network.
Yeah. Talk about that support network real quick. We have just a...
and I think that's important. That's somebody that you trust who is going to support you, cheer you on when things are going well, who's going to kind of hold you accountable if you're slacking off. But you can have that honest discussion with them, share your timeline, share your work plan, share your successes, share if you had a bad interview and you feel a little down on yourself, and that person's going to be there to lift you up and there to congratulate you when things go well.
Wow. So much information, great information. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the show. We are out of time. I appreciate you enlightening our audience on the best ways to manage one's job search and sharing career development tips. Now, don't go away, because when we come back, Army veteran Mike Barbour will be joining me at the table to talk about the benefits of hiring veterans. We'll be right back after these important public service announcements.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Good things happen at the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County. Experience more than 25,000 acres where native plants and animals make their home. Discover the scenic beauty of over 60 forest preserves containing forests, prairies, and wetlands. Explore the wonder of changing seasons along 145 miles of trails. Get outside and discover the good things that happen when you visit DuPage Forest Preserves. The Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, where good things happen.
Welcome back to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, and joining me at the table is Army veteran, Commander Emeritus, and Service Officer for the Naperville VFW and American Legion, Mike Barbour. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Kim.
Well, in honor of Veterans Day this month, I wanted to talk a little bit about veterans in the workplace, why companies should consider hiring veterans. But before we get to that, I want to, in case someone in our audience doesn't know who you are, share a little bit about your background, your storied Army career.
Yeah. Well, I was in the military from 1964 to 1969. I served in Vietnam 1967 to 68. When I got back, I was working for a paper mill in Pennsylvania as a quality control engineer, and decided I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And my brother-in-law had a job opening out here, which I applied for and got. We've been out here since 1969.
Wow,
so we're Midwesterners.
Yeah.
And in my career, I have just sold everything in the automotive aftermarket, from tire valves to computer systems to chemicals. And the last 15 years that I was in the market, I worked for a company that sold crash parts to body shops for collision repair, and I was the national account sales manager. On my volunteer side, I'm a past commander of the VFW post in Naperville. I'm on the board of the DuPage County Veterans Assistance Commission, on the Patient Advisory Council at Hines, on some of the congressmen on their advisory site, councils, and just doing a lot. Most of my volunteer work is to help veterans.
Yeah, and you do a lot. I know that for a fact. I'm married to one, and my dad's a veteran, and I know you've helped us in that area. You also just recently retired from the township. You were doing some work with veterans there.
Yes,
job search.
Yeah, I was the veterans advocate. And with the through the township, I got involved with hiring our heroes, and also the Career Center with job fairs for veterans. And I think in this area we did about 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah, right, we did. And that's how you and I met. We really were working on just ways in which we can help our veterans become employed. So let's talk a little bit about military-friendly companies. I know a lot of companies say that they're military-friendly, but there really is some things that you have to really be doing in order to be a military-friendly company.
Well, one of the things that you should do, all the military, each branch of the service has their own culture. And most of the veterans and the active duty people are ingrained in that culture. But when they get out of the military, go to work for a company, companies have a culture too. And what we found is that the companies that were most successful would assign a mentor to the veteran coming in and kind of indoctrinate him into what the companies expect and just the overall culture, so that they have a working knowledge or a feel for what the company is all about.
And so military-friendly companies in this area, there's probably quite a few.
Well, there are. They and I find that actually the smaller businesses, to me, seem to be more military-friendly. Maybe it's just because of the size of scale, I don't know. But the one thing that I think that companies need to do is have a mentoring program for the servicemen and women that they hire.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, because I know the Department of Veterans Affairs did a survey on that, having mentors, also affinity groups, and how important those are for service members once they've started working for their companies. So to be a military-friendly company, you can't just say I'm military-friendly. You have to kind of understand what it means to hire a veteran.
Well, and I think one of the things, I smile every time I talk about this, is do you know the acronyms and the lingo of the military? Because, man, they have a lot of acronyms. So that's one of the things. And actually, the Department of Veterans Affairs has a website for the acronyms.
And there's a lot of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot. And I know some some companies have departments within their company that actually go out and do a reach out for veterans, like they would do recent college graduates. They are actually focused on bringing in veterans.
Right, and one of the things, and I think it was so satisfying to me to hear about this, is that there were a lot of veterans that they came in at an entry-level position, and within 4 to 6 months, they were promoted, just because of the skills and the attributes that they offered the employer.
So let's talk about the Department of Veterans Affairs study that they did, where they talked about the mentoring programs, because once you get these veterans in place, now you want to make sure that you can retain them.
Right.
So there's the mentoring programs, the affinity groups. Do you know, can you speak a little bit about those affinity groups that they encourage them to put together?
In a lot of cases, when you're talking about the affinity groups, it's a lot of volunteer things that they do, and they actually become a part of help the veterans to become a part of the culture of the company and everything. I've seen a lot of cases where the veterans come in, and whatever charity this company is working at, somehow the veterans step up and become leaders in moving it forward.
Yeah.
So
it's really about that community involvement piece. I know I was recently in DC, and they had the 10K, and there's a lot of companies that are there represented, and they're clearly very military friendly. They have a focus on bringing in veterans and as employees.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about why should a company consider hiring a veteran?
Well, there are a lot of benefits to hiring veterans. The veterans possess what the employers want. And I'm not getting into a long laundry list of what they want, but what the veteran will give the company is discipline, self-starters. I've talked to many managers in some of these companies, and they all say, wow, they're there on time all the time. They have actually forced us, when we have meetings, to start the meetings on time, because one of the things the veterans say is that if I'm 10 minutes early, I'm late. So
I know that's your mantra, because I've been at meetings with you, and you're always on time, early.
But they're trustworthy, they're loyal, they're trainable. I mean, they go through so many things in the military that crop up. They can communicate. They have the ability to adapt to different cultures. Just as an example, our veterans that are getting out of the military now in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, those cultures are totally different than anything that they've ever experienced. They're problem solvers. I think the one thing that, when you look at our military versus other militaries, if the commanding officer gets shot or wounded, somebody steps up. And I saw it in Vietnam in platoons, where the platoon leader and the platoon sergeant got wounded. Another squad leader stepped up. So they're trained to be problem solvers.
Right.
And they have leadership and management skills.
Absolutely.
The one thing I think veterans give, and we tell the younger veterans, that you're probably about 8 years ahead, maturity-wise, of anybody that's in your age category. So when you hire a veteran, especially one of our younger veterans, you're not hiring a 21-year-old that doesn't have any experience. He has all kinds of experience.
If someone that's about 30, there's a self-confidence there.
Yes.
Right. Some other things that as I thought about this, there's a strong work ethic, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yes.
Very strong work ethic. Cross-functional skills, right? They're able to do a number of things.
Right, multitasking. And these are the things that companies are looking for. And they're also team players. They know that if the team is successful, then they'll be successful. So if there's a mission that the company has, and you look at it from a team concept, that's what you want. You want somebody that's going to work within the team and try to make the team better.
Right. So for military-friendly companies, is there a formal process in order for them to formally be considered a military-friendly company? Do you know?
Not to my knowledge. No. It's just there's a lot of good information out about that. The Department of Veterans Affairs, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has some information that's available about what you can do to be a better military-friendly company.
And aren't there some like tax benefits and some other benefits?
Yes,
too?
there are. And in Illinois, there is and the federal government, I think there's, I don't remember the exact number because it's been changed, but there's a several $1,000s a year tax benefit to the company for hiring a veteran. And also, if it's a disabled veteran, it's an even larger benefit, tax benefit, yes.
So if a veteran, I know at the township you guys had a system there where people would come in and you would kind of direct them to some places they need to go.
Right. Well,
what would they do now?
I'm still the service officer for the VFW and the American Legion, and can always get me through them. But if folks call the township gets that phone number and information to me, and I contact the veterans. So
how many? And I know when you and I used to, we would sit in some meetings before, you had a number out there on like the number of vets that live in the Illinois area, the DuPage County area.
In DuPage County, there's over 40,000 just in DuPage County. In the Naperville area, it's somewhere between 12 and 14,000 veterans. And I think the state of Illinois right now is around 700,000. So.
Yeah, so it's really, there's a lot of veterans out there and a lot of veterans looking looking for work. So if they are looking, they should, call their local townships, go to their VFWs. I know you all put on a number of programs at the VFWs.
Yeah, probably I would say, first of all, Naperville Township, other than, and then I think Hanover Township, were the only two townships in the state of Illinois that actually had a veterans program. So, but they can still call the township and they'll get the information to me, but also either the VFW or the American Legion in Naperville too.
So the important takeaway here is consider a veteran when you're hiring, right?
Well, I think you would be pleasantly surprised at the benefits of it.
Right. Well, Mike, thank you so much. We are out of time. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise on the benefits of hiring a veteran. And also, thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate that. I also want to thank Noreen Peterson for joining me on this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you are unemployed, underemployed, or seeking a career change, visit the Community Career Center at 1815 West Diehl Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web at www.communitycareercenter.org to learn more about the resources available to you as you search for your next success. Thanks so much for watching.